Hello, welcome to today's webinar on Introduction to Creating 360 Apps in Unity, Part 2. My name is Tanya Barnes, Director of Online Education of the International Virtual Reality Professionals Association, also known affectionately as IVRPA for brevity. I'll be moderating today's event. With me today is Karen Ladizi, Vice President of IVRPA. Karen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen, and I just want to welcome you. And also, Tanya, if you don't mind starting from the beginning.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought I waited a beat, but okay. Hi, everybody. Let's take this from the top just to make sure we have everything rolling. Here we go. Welcome to today's webinar on Introduction to Creating 360 Apps in Unity, Part 2. My name is Tanya Barnes, Director of Online Education of the International Virtual Reality Professionals Association, also known as affectionately as IVRPA for brevity. I'll be moderating today's event. With me today is Karen Ladizi, Vice President of IVRPA. Karen?
Hi again. I'm back. I'll be working in the background. I'll be working in the background here, helping everyone with their questions. And yeah, it's great to have you.
Okay, IVRPA is a nonprofit organization supported by our members and sponsors and operated entirely by volunteers. We provide resources in nearly all aspects of 360 panoramic photography and are pleased to offer this webinar to our members and friends around the world. Giving today's presentation is Juan Camilo Infante, co-founder and CTO of Perspectiva 360. He is a 360 panoramic photographer and a Unity certified programmer. Furthermore, Juan is a fellow of the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative, funded by the United States Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. Furthermore, Juan is the newest member of the board of directors for IVRPA. Intro to Unity for 360 Photographers Part 2 is a 40-minute webinar wherein you will take the concepts from the last webinar and use them to develop and export a VR app where you can switch from 360 panoramas to 360 videos by interacting with controller's input. At any time you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A tab on the right panel of your screen. Juan will do his best to answer all of them as he can in the last 15 to 20 minutes of the hour. As a reminder, this event is being recorded and the video will be posted to our website within a few days. So, without further ado, let's get started. Juan, take it away.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm very happy to be here in our second webinar with the topic Unity. Today is a very exciting day because we have some announcements from Unity and because we are going to build an app for the Oculus Quest with the information from our last webinar. So I'm going to start sharing my slides. And before we start, I am launching a poll now. I would like to ask you if you attended our last webinar and also if you're an IVRPA member. Okay, it seems most like we have the half of the people who are here today are IVRPA members, and more or less 70% attended our last webinar. Well, that's great because I'm going to be talking about a lot of concepts that we were discussing in our last webinar. So, and that's how we start. So in our last webinar, we learned a very important thing. Why is it a good idea using Unity? How it can help you to grow as a professional and to expand your services portfolio. We also learned how to install Unity and create a new project. We were navigating through the main windows inside of Unity. We learned the concepts of materials and textures, how to import 360 photos. We are going to use that knowledge today. And there at the end, before I load my connection, there was a question about how to import 360 video. So I am going to start with that question today. But before before we go to important 360 videos, I wanted to let you know about a very good news from Unity. 2 days ago, the Unity version 2019 LTS was released. So in our last webinar, I was telling you why it is a good idea to use LTS versions, and we were using Unity 2018 LTS. Now, remember that LTS stands for long-term support. So it means if you start a project today in this version of LTS 2019, you can be sure that Unity is going to go on giving you support, and you can stay, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years developing with the same Unity version without any problem. So Unity 2018 LTS is the version that I'm going to be using today, and is the only one that works with the newest workflow. Now, just to remember our last year's conference, so at IVRPA, since I know that half of people here are IVRPA members and half aren't, at IVRPA, every year we hold an event in a different city, in a different place of the world. So last year it was in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, and I was giving a workshop about how to create apps, VR apps using 360 photos and videos for the Oculus Go. I have here the link if you guys want to take a look at it. There is there it is, and also in the chat tab I was sending you a file with the list of the external links that I'm going to use today. And by the way, I'm going to use a different approach today from the approach that I had in Belfast. In Belfast, I was emphasizing more in the coding part, so if you want to take a look at it, please feel free to explore that option as well. Now, today in Belfast, I was focusing on Oculus Go, but today we're going to focus on the Oculus Quest. And there are a lot of reasons why using the Oculus Quest, but I'm going to name just two of them. The first one is the with the Oculus Quest, you have the flexibility of the Oculus Go, but you have the option to upgrade it to support PC-based VR experiences. And also, according to, I had the chance to attend Oculus Connect 6 last year in San Jose, in California. And it seems like Facebook, it seems like Oculus, it seems like they are really putting a lot of efforts in doing great things with this one. So it is a good idea to keep developing for the Oculus Quest platform. Now, some steps before creating our virtual reality apps, and all of these links are inside of the document that I sent on the chat that you can download. Well, the first part is downloading Unity. We talked about it in our last webinar, but I'm sending you the link. Getting started with your device, only if it's the first time that you're using the Quest. Enable development mode for your Oculus Quest, which is just getting your cell phone or your iPad and going to the Oculus application, finding the code of your Oculus Quest, and toggling the developer mode option. Please note that for that you have to first have an Oculus developer account. If you don't have it, it's not going to work. Setting up Android development in Unity. This is something that comes out automatically when you install a new Unity version, but in case you missed it, there is the link. And you have to install ADV drivers, which are the ones that are going to that are able to recognize that you're using the Oculus Quest. Okay, now I wanted to talk about a must-have accessory for the Oculus Quest. Well, in my opinion, and when I was talking about two advantages of using the Oculus Quest, the first one that I mentioned was that you can use you can convert you can use PC-based VR experiences with the Oculus Quest. So how do you do that? With this cable that is called Oculus Link. I'm going to show you how it works. So you have your Oculus Quest, and you connect your Oculus Quest with the Oculus Link cable directly to your PC, and the result is that your Oculus Quest is upgraded and you are able to run PC-based experiences or applications or games that before were only available for headsets like HTC Vive or Oculus Rift, and but with the advantage that everything fits inside a bag, inside of this kind of rucksack. So this is a really good thing. You can have the flexibility of the Oculus Quest, but with the power of the Oculus Rift. And by the way, in that case, you don't need to buy the Oculus Rift unless, yeah, well. The next good news is the XR Interaction Toolkit. This is something that Unity was working on recently. It is still on preview mode, but in my opinion, this is a game changer, and this is a workflow that is way easier to create VR and AR applications. And since its name is XR, so remember XR stands for the mix between VR and AR. This is a toolkit and this is a workflow that also works for augmented reality. So if you start getting used to that for VR, you can be sure that in not a lot of time you will be also be able to create augmented reality applications, which is very good. I was talking about it in our last webinar when I was saying why it was a good idea learning Unity, and it's right because of this, because of the amount of different things that you can create with just one tool. Now, before we actually start important 360 video, I wanted to show you two very important things about Unity's interface. So I don't just want to go and show you how to create VR, and maybe if this is the first or the second time that you are that you see Unity, you will feel overwhelmed. You will feel confused. You will be ending up knowing how to create VR, but you don't know how to use Unity's interface, and that this can be very confusing. So I'm going to show you two important things inside of Unity. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my entire screen. And hopefully you should be able now to see my screen, and I have Unity opened. To save some time, I created a new Unity project with the 2019.3 Unity version, which is the LTS version. And here we have, again, as in our last webinar, we have our different tabs. Please remember that here under layout, you can change the layout of Unity's interface. So we're going to focus on the scene view. And just for this webinar purpose, I'm going to create two 3D objects. So I'm going to create a plane, and I'm going to create a cube. Now, there are 5 ways to navigate inside of Unity's Unity's interface. So the first one is mouse scroll. So You just take your mouse and use the scroll of the mouse to do some to zoom in or zoom out. The second way of doing it is by hitting the right button of your mouse and dragging to the left or to the right or to any direction. So in this way, you will be rotating in 360 degrees. The next one is if you have, let's say, this cube and you want to orbit around that cube, you just have to hit the key Alt and then the mouse, the left button of the mouse, and drag. And in this way, you start just orbiting around a certain object. And the next one, the next option to navigate in our scene view is just by clicking on the scroll button. So if you click on it, you will be able to move the scene in different ways. This is actually my favorite way of navigating inside of Unity. So I would press the scroll and move it like this, and then if I want to turn, I would use just the right click of the mouse, and this is how, and the zoom in and zoom out, and this is how I usually do it. And the last option is using the keyboard. So if you hit the mouse right click, if you stay with that click pressed and you start using, let's say, the Q key on the keyboard or the E key, you will start doing this movement. If you press W and S, you will be zooming in, and zooming out. If you use the A or D keys, you will pan like this. So this is another way. It feels like if you were as if you were like in a game. I just try to actually use just the mouse. I like it better. So I'm going to go back to the slides to go on. Now, we were learning how to navigate in the scene view. This takes some time. You will need some time to get used to this. Now we're going to position and modify objects inside of our scene view. So I'm going to share my screen again, and hopefully you should be seeing what I see now, which is Unity. In Unity, in this part, you have these buttons which will help you to modify and position objects here. So the first one is this one, which is called the Move tool. So what we're going to do is on the hierarchy, we select the cube and then we select the Move tool, and you will see that I can see now 3 different axes in which I can move my object. So in this case, this is the blue one is the Z axis, the red one is the X axis, and the green one is the Y axis. So if I just click on them and move them, I can start moving my any object that I have here. You can also use this little cube that is inside of the cube. So that is the first one. Then we're moving to the next one, which is the rotate tool. This will allow you to rotate any object in any of the 3 different axes that you have. You can do that by hand like this, or if you want a precise rotation, you can go to the inspector here and you can go to the transform component. Please remember that transform is just a fancy way of saying position, rotation, and scale. So if you want to rotate around the y-axis, you can just change here the values, let's say 45, and well, and you're going to be rotating your object, your game object in scene view. I'm going to leave it. I like to use it here from transform component when I want to make sure that I am when I want to be more specific in my measurements. Okay, so going back to the next one is the scale tool. This one will make you will enable you to change the size of the object. You can, if you click and drag on this little cube from the middle, you will be able to modify all the three axes at the same time. But if you just wanted to modify one of the axes, you can do so by just choosing one. Let's say, for example, some weeks ago, I was creating a digital piano inside of Unity. So I was using this to create the piano keys. But let's go back to our cube. And the last one, we are not going to talk about this rec tool, which is for mostly for UI, but the next one is this one. This one is a combination of all of them. So with this one, you can have all the options. So you can move the object, you can rotate it, and you can scale it. I usually don't use it. I prefer just doing one task per button, but so that you know that you can also just hit on one button and perform all the actions you want to make. And of course, Unity, working in Unity is a lot about researching on forums, but it's also a lot about knowing a lot of keyboard shortcuts for whatever you're trying to make. So in this case, if you're in the scene view and you hit the W key, sorry, you first have to click on any game object. Then you click on the Y key, you will see the move tool. Then if you press the E, you will see the rotate tool, and you can go on like that, R, T, until you go to Y. So remember that, which is very, very useful when you're creating a lot of things inside of Unity. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my slides. I hope it was clear. This is also something that requires a lot of time and practice to get used to it. The next one, now we are going to start with displaying our 360 videos. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to share my screen again. Hopefully you are seeing Unity again. And I am looking for my 360 video, which I have in this folder. So I'm going to go back to the project tab and create a new folder, which is going to be called videos. In our last webinar, I was talking about why these names are important and how you can name them and change them. So inside of this folder, I'm going to drag and drop my 360 video. This is something that takes a couple of seconds. Yeah, but we're ready. Now, the next thing we have to do is drag and drop our 360 video from the project tab to the hierarchy tab. And now I can change the name of it. So if you press F2, you can change the name. I'm going to call it 360 video. And here, then we're going to the inspector, and under video player, we are going to let it know that the render mode is going to be render texture. As soon as we change that to render texture, we will see that Unity is asking us for a render texture. So this is what we are going to do just now. So we go back to our assets folder, we right click on any empty space and create a new folder, which is going to be called textures. And inside of it, let's right click again and create a new render texture. I don't find it. Here it is. I'm going to call it video texture, but feel free to use other kind of name. Now there is a very important step today doing this, and it is about the size. Now we have to go back to our video and check its properties to see the size of it. So now we're going to copy this size inside of Unity. Now the render texture is exactly this, has the same size as our 360 video, and we can go to our next step. So we go back to, remember if you attended the last webinar, I was showing you how you can have different project tabs and why I was using it a lot in creating applications with 360 photos and 360 videos. So in the second project tab, I'm going to go to the assets folder and I'm going to create a new folder, which is going to be called materials. In our last webinar, we already know what it is. So now I'm going to just go faster today. We are going to call it Skybox. Let's call it Skybox. Call it Skybox Video. And we know that we have to use the shader Skybox and panoramic. And now
Uh, hey, sorry to interrupt, Juan, but I think your mic is, you need to unmute your mic. I think we had a little blip there for a moment.
wow. Thanks for letting me know.
Actually, where's everybody? Is anyone still here or were you kicked out? Can you please give me a hello? Did everyone just get kicked out? What happened? Ah,
Yeah, it's funny. Loren says he's here.
oh, okay. Okay, good. Then let's keep going. Sorry for the
Okay.
interruption.
Thanks for letting me know over the mic. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. So we were going to our 360 video, and since we told the 360 video that we were using a render texture, now we have to let Unity know which render texture we are going to be using. And now just for our purposes, well, I'm going to Control S my project to save it. It is very important to do since Unity crashes, unfortunately, quite often. So I'm going to go back to the folder where I have my 360 photos. I'm going just to import one of them so that we can start um, creating like the interaction that we were going to do. All of these settings were explained in our last webinar. It is important that you decide which is the size, the maximum size of your photos. I usually use 4K, but in this case, I'm just going to leave it at as 2K, so that it doesn't take a lot of time applying changes. and we are ready. Now I'm going to create another material. I'm just going to copy and paste this one with Control or Command V. So I'm going to call it Skybox Pano. In this one, I will let Unity know that I'm going to use this texture. Now, if you remember, last webinar I was showing you different ways that you can use 360 photos as skyboxes. In this case, I'm just going to use one of the options that I was showing you, and it is using this lighting tab inside of Unity. And under environment, we are going to change the skybox material. Remember that if you don't see the lighting window open, you just have to go to window, rendering and lighting settings. That is going to open up a new window, and I just was moving that tab to this part next to the inspector. So there are two options. You can either drag and drop the material, the skybox material here, or my favorite one is just dragging and dropping it directly to the scene view. And in this case, I can either drag the photo or I can either drag the 360 video. And what is going to happen is that if I hit the play button here, or remember also hitting the Control P or Command P keys, you are going to be able to start seeing the 360 video. Yeah, so it is starting now. I'm going to pause it. Okay, now we have, this is how you make it so that you import 360 videos inside of Unity. I'm gonna go back to my slides, and we are going to go to the next step. So finally, we're going to start creating our virtual reality application. So in this case, we have to install a package. Packages in Unity are like plugins. So I'm going to jump to Unity to show you how to do that. So I'm sharing my screen again. Hopefully you see Unity now. And you have to go to Window, Package Manager, and it will start loading the different packages you can have. Now, we have to look for the XR Interaction Toolkit. So we look for that, and we realize that it is not there. So it is very important for you to go to the Advanced tab and click on Show Preview Packages. If you do this, Unity will show you the XR Interaction Toolkit, and all you have to do is here you see a little button that says Install. You have to click on that button, and that starts importing the Unity Interaction Toolkit. So while it is doing that, I am going to go back to my slides to show you the next step. Now we are going to, usually I tend to explain the build settings at the last part of our webinar, but in this case I'm going to start with the build settings. It is very important to know all of this because it is very easy to get something wrong here, and if you just missed a little detail, your app is not going to export to your Oculus Quest, and believe me, you will be hours looking for information on forums to know how to fix like little details that doesn't matter. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and show you this. So I'm going to close the package manager, and I'm going to go to File, Build Settings. And here, this is what you have to do. The first thing is click on the Open Scenes tab. Make sure you remember the concept of what a scene is. Then you have to click on Android, and click on switch platform. We are always going to be using Android because Oculus Quest is running on Android operating system. Now, a couple of little details more here are, well, let's wait a couple of seconds until it is fully loaded. Okay, so the texture compression that we're going to use, it is ASTC. Now, another thing that we have to do now is going to, well, it is a good moment to get your Oculus Quest and to plug it into your computer. I am doing it just now. Yeah, computer is recognizing it. And now I can see in this front device, I can see there is a default device and I can change it. I can't see here my Oculus Quest, so I'm going to hit on the refresh button. And now I am able to see my Oculus Quest. If you don't see your Oculus Quest, don't worry. This is a very common mistake that happens quite a lot and it drives you crazy. It is probably because you didn't install the ADB drivers that I was sending you in the link, in the external links file. And also feel free to look for videos where that ADB process is explained in detail. That is the key so that Unity can recognize your Oculus Quest. But that is outside of the scope of this tutorial, this webinar. So I'm going to choose my Oculus Quest. And now I am going to click on the player settings button, which is going to open a new tab. In previous workflows, the way to work with Virtual Reality was going to this XR settings space, but now this is not how we are going to create VR anymore. So please forget about this. In the Belfast workshop, I was using these XR settings. Now we are going to use something totally different. Now we're going to go to the we were here in the player settings. Now we're going to go to the XR plugin management and click on install XR plugin management. Today we're going to be installing a lot of things. And I'm doing this like live so that you see the whole process. I didn't want to overstep any of the steps. So let's wait for it a couple of seconds. It is usually a little bit faster. Okay, it's done. Now we have different settings here. We have the HTML5, we have the Magic Leap, and we have the PC option. If you have the Oculus Link cable, you want to click here on the Oculus checkbox. But today in our case, we're just going to click on this Oculus checkbox, and that is going to again import and load more things that Unity needs so that we can start creating our virtual reality apps. While it is doing it, I'm going to go back to my slides. It seems it's done. No, it is not done. So I'm gonna go back to my slides to show you something in the meantime. So we already did all of these steps. Now we are on this step, checking on the Oculus checkbox. And there is something that you want to make sure it is done. I'm going to go back to my screen. There is something that you want to make sure as well. After you check the Oculus option here, you go to Oculus and make sure that multipass, that this thing says multipass and that V2 signing quest is checked as well. And now we're ready. This is everything we have to set up for us to start creating our virtual reality applications. So just I am going to use my as skybox my the 360 photo I had before because it looks nicer. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these two objects that I'm not going to need here, or I'm going to disable them. If you select an item in the hierarchy and you go to inspector and you click on it, you can enable or disable it. And I'm going to save. Very important step. Oops, sorry, I was disabling in the 360 view. I just need to disable the plane and the cube. And now I just need to save. Now, our next step is creating our VR app. We start by creating an XR rig. So we should go to the hierarchy and select an XR rig. I'm going to show you this. So we go to hierarchy, we right click, and we find the XR option. And here we have two different options. We can choose either stationary XR rig or room scale XR rig. In our case, since we're using 360 photos and 360 videos, there is no point in using room scale XR rig. We have to use a stationary XR rig because we have only 3 degrees of freedom. If you have another kind of input like maybe photogrammetry, a photogrammetry space, or if you have a 3D model of a house or a museum or anything like that, where you can move around and actually your movement will be also reflected in your headset, then use room scale XR rig. But in this case, just stay with stationary XR rig. Now, we have, and let's go and save our progress. Now, let's go back to our slides to just make sure that we are following the right process. I'm going to go back to Unity, go back to the hierarchy tab. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to find XR settings and click on UI canvas. It is very important that you click on UI canvas from the XR option and not from the UI option. Both have canvases, but make sure that you're clicking on UI canvas. So that creates our canvas game object and our event system. An event system is just something that is there so that Unity can recognize the different user interface input and interactions. So please don't delete that event system game object. Now, what is a canvas? A canvas is a thing, it's a place where all your UI elements will live. So always when you want to create a new UI element, let's say a billboard or a button or a slider or a different thing, you need a canvas. Now I'm going to double click on this canvas to see it. Now what you see is that this is massive. It is too big. So we're going to select it on our hierarchy and then we're going to our inspector and we're going to use the rect transform tool. Remember the transform stands for different options here. And we are just going to use the scale and we're going to scale it to 0.1 in X and Y. We don't have to do it for the Z axis, but I just do it always. And now our canvas is smaller. Now we go again to hierarchy and we double click that canvas. And now it is time for us to create our first UI button. So we're going to go to select our canvas and we're going to right click on it and select UI. Now we're going to UI and select button text mesh pro. it is going to ask me to import TextMesh Pro information and anything they need. So I'm going to wait until it imports everything. Starting with this is importing a lot of things. Now we're ready and we have our button. And just so that you know, you may be wondering, why didn't I use the button? Like, what's the difference between the button and the TextMesh Pro button? So I'm going to create a regular button as well. Please remember that I was showing you how to use the move tool to move your objects. So I'm going to use now. And here it is. I can see the difference. I recommend you to use always your TextMesh Pro buttons or TextMesh Pro texts, because they will look nicer, they will look beautiful, the edges will look great. It is not like this blur button which text looks really ugly. You can more or less try to fix that by scaling the text and doing things like that. I was also doing that before until I found the TextMesh Pro option, and I forgot about the regular button after that. So I'm going to delete this ugly button. So that you know, TextMesh Pro was a different company that Unity acquired because of the quality of their text and the graphics. So it makes sense to use it. Now we see that it is also quite big, so we can click on the R key and change its size. Yeah. So you see, this square is my canvas. And for this, for today's webinar, I'm just going to fit in my different buttons inside of this canvas. Um, Make sure that when you create an app, you can create beautiful buttons where you with your custom designs. You can also create like a nice backgrounds, like transparent backgrounds. You can do as many things as you can imagine. But for today, and just to avoiding making it very long, I'm just going to use the standard versions here. I'm going to add 3 buttons. One button, 2 buttons are going to play and pause the 360 video, and the third button is going to change from 360 video to our 360 photo. Why am I doing this? Because this is what we 360 photographers mostly do in our virtual tours. So let's go back to the button here. I'm going to rename it with the F2 key, and I'm going to call it play. And here under this little triangle, remember there are here like parent-child relationships. So I have the canvas, and inside the canvas I have the play button, and inside the play button I have this text. I'm going to change the text now to say something like play me. I'm going to save. Now I'm going to go to the play game object, and I'm going to hit on the command D so that it creates a copy of it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename it like pause. And inside of it, I'm going to go to the TextMesh Pro. And inside of play me, I'm going to say pause me. We see now that I don't see the play, I see only the pause me. And this is because when it creates a copy of it, it creates the copy in exactly the same spot. So I'm going just to hit the W key and to move my play button to this part. Or we can do the opposite if we want. Now I'm going to position this here. So we're ready to create our last button. I also just copied the last one. I'm going to call it panorama. And again, I'm going back to the TextMesh Pro. And I'm going to say 364 Pro. I'm going to move this. We realize that probably the text is too big, and I want to show you that you can change the size. One of the things why I like Text Mesh Pro is because it allows me to control a lot of the settings from my text. So I can use any beautiful fonts that I want by clicking here. Um, I can change the style, I can change the size, the color, and more things here. So I'm going to change the size of the button to, let's say, 30. Let's say 25, and I'm going to do the same in for the other two. Yes. And I'm going to control save the project. So now we have our three little buttons. Now I'm going to go back to the slides to see our next step. So we created a canvas, we created our buttons. Now we're going to add interaction to the 360 video. Now, the very nice thing about the XR Interaction Toolkit is that it comes with a lot of pre-built functionalities. For example, if I click on any element from the canvas, let's say the play button, and I go to Inspector, I'm going to find here this on-click event. Always when you see this kind of interface here, on-click and list is empty, this is an event, and you can add something, you can add an action like an event to that. So this is what happens when someone clicks it. It is not the click, it is just like the Oculus Quest controller trigger. So I'm going to add a new one. Here it is asking me for an object. So I want to drag and drop my 360 video, and here in Now function, I'm going to say video player and play. What this is going to make is that when I click on the laser pointer under the play me button, it is going to play. Now we're going to do the same with the pause button. And now we're ready. We're almost ready. One important thing that we want to do is going back to our 360 video object and disable this option of play on awake, because we don't want the 360 video to start right away in this app. We want just that the 360 video starts when we hit the play button with our laser pointer. So we disable that. Now we are ready for that, and we just need one more thing. We want to use our third button, and this is how you would just use like a hotspot to navigate from one 360 photo to the next one. So you have to change the skybox that Unity is using. How do you do that? We are going to use code. So far, we haven't done anything with coding. If you want to take a look at the Belfast workshop, I was using more code here, but Unity was making this easier for all of us and more convenient for all of us. So we're going to go back to Assets folder, and we're going to create a new folder that is going to be called Scripts. And here, I'm going to right-click and create a new C# script. A very important point here, please make sure that you name this script with a good name. In this case, I'm going to give it the name of change panorama. I'm starting with capital C and capital P because that's like the standard convention for classes in programming. If by accident you created like another name, or afterwards you want to change the name, I advise you to better delete the script and create a new one. There are some things that inside of the code that if they don't match the name, they will show you an error, and that's a very common one. So like some of the most common errors that I have encountered in Unity are: one, is this thing about naming the scripts. Another one is probably not having enough space on your hard drive, and other ones are just like missing the build settings. And the other one is not properly installing Unity, and the last one is probably missing some little step inside of Unity, checking something here, and those little mistakes will drive you crazy. So please remember to always make sure you are naming the script in a convenient way. So we're going to double click on it, and it is going to open Visual Studio. This is where we are going to be writing any code. For today's webinar, the good news is we don't need a lot of code. Two basic things from Unity. You may be familiar with coding, but if not, anyway, I'm going to explain some things here. So Unity has by default two basic methods or functions. A method is basically a piece of text that is going to perform a certain action. So we have the start method and the update method. The difference between them is the start method happens only once in your app, and it is right at the start of the app. So when on Unity you click on the play button, then is when the start method is going to happen. Or when you take your headset and you click on the app and it starts, it is in that moment and only once when that is going to be executed. The next one is the update method. That update method happens after the start, and it happens on a regular basis. So it is not only once, it happens every frame. And every frame depends like the how fast the update is happening depends on your computer. It is like in video. We know that we have some videos that they run on, let's say, 29 fps or 90 fps. It is the same. If you have a more powerful computer, you will run this update method is going to be called more times than if you have like a slow one. Now, we are going to create a new variable, and we have to start by creating an access modifier. So we have different kinds of access modifiers. We have public and we have private. Let's start with the public one. No, let's start with the private one. Private, see, from our last webinar, we know that we are using a material. So we're going to say private material skybox. We already know why it is a skybox. Yeah, and we're going to Control S to save, and we're going to go back to Unity. And Unity is loading the changes that we were applying. That's why you see like this circle here on the downside on your right hand side here on this corner. Now, a very important thing to do is you need to apply your script to a game object. Some people create like a journal manager game object, like a video manager game object, or like a game manager game object. Some people tend to apply the scripts to the main camera. In this case, I am going to apply this game object to all of our buttons. So I can just select them all the time and add it, or in this case, I'm going to do it one by one, starting with the play button. So now let's click on the play button. We go to inspector and we see that we have our script here. Now the question is, so we need a skybox. So when the person clicks on the 360 photo button, we need to make sure that we see the 360 photo that we created and imported before. How do we tell Unity that? We have two options. We can do it by on start looking for that object, but there is an easier one. And that's why I am going to change my private access modifier and change it to public. And you will see what happens in Unity. So again, it is loading. And now, hopefully, yes, you see the variable that is called skybox, and you see this empty slot. So you see that always when you have something that you can drag and drop, it is because it is a public variable. So it is very, very important to tell from public and private access modifiers. So in this case, I am going to let Unity know that when they click on this button, they will use this skybox, which has this waterfall photo. By the way, I want to change something in my waterfall photo. Yes, I want people to start looking at the waterfall. Okay, let's go back to the play button. We now know that we're going to load our skybox panel. We're going to save. So it knows now which is the photo that we're going to use, but it is not changing it. So for that, we have to create our own custom method. I'm going to call it void new panorama. I need this parenthesis, and I am trying to need to change my keyboard to English to make that. Yes. Now we need to perform a certain action. Now, how do we know how to change the skybox of it? This is actually, as I was mentioning before, working inside of Unity is mostly going to the forums and doing research. In our case, I'm going to quickly go back to the slides and I'm going to show you how it is done. So if you Google like how to change a skybox, you will find this documentation. So here I have this for you. So you see that you have to type render setting.skybox. To be honest, it is not very likely that everyone knows all of this information by heart. To be honest, I quite forget this quite quick, but it is very useful that always I just look for it and I know how to write it. So I'm gonna go back to my method, and we know that it is render settings dot skybox equals our variable, which is skybox. Now we need this semicolon at the end. Now we're ready. Now let's go back to Unity. It is loading our script. Now we're going to apply the same script to the pause button. And we're going to apply the same script to the panorama button. So I made a little mistake here. So we have these three buttons and we have to tell Unity know which 360 photo or skybox is going to display as soon as I click on any of the buttons. So if I click on the play button, the skybox that I want to see is actually our 360 video. The same with the pause button. And in our panorama, we want to create a new action. We're just going to drag and drop this change panorama component. And here we are going to look for our method that is called void new panorama. So we look for it, change panorama, and we don't see any new panorama. I made this in purpose just to show you why it is important. Why access modifiers are important. So now let's type public void new panorama and you will see how different it is now. So it is loading. New function, change panorama, and we see now change panorama. And it is going to display the new one that we let it that we use it here. So it is Skybox and Skybox Panorama. Okay, now we are ready. Sorry guys, I know I am over the time, but this is so useful for you that I wanted to explain to you this in detail. Now we came finally to the moment when we are going to export our app. So we're going to go to build settings. We see the Oculus Quest here. We click on the build and run option. Usually people create a new folder called builds. And inside of this folder, they gave a name for the app. Let's call it IVRPA. Another thing that I forgot to mention, guys, if you go to the player settings and you go to other settings, the documentation says that you need to click here on the graphics API checkbox and that you need to use Vulkan for the virtual reality app and you have to use it on linear. But from my experience, that didn't work and that was bringing me a lot of errors. So if linear plus graphics API plus Vulkan works for you, go for it. But otherwise, feel free to just use Gamma. Now, we're going back to the build option. We are going to call our app IVRPA Quest Save. And automatically, what it does is it starts exporting our app to the Oculus Quest device. Usually, this is the place where we get a lot of mistakes, so hopefully it will work. And it takes some time depending actually on the media that you have inside of your app. In this case, it's going to take a couple of moments more because we have a very big 360 video. Otherwise, it is going to do it quicker. But I really wanted to show you the whole process and not overstepping this part of it. And hopefully it works. As I said, usually in Unity, when you export, you would be surprised if everything happens as you want. Usually you just forgot to do like a little step. So meanwhile, I'm going to go back to my slides um, so that um, I make sure that we don't get that I didn't miss any step. No. Now let's take the chance that the app is building and I'm going to answer some questions. Let's see if I can answer some questions. The first question comes from Brian Richards. Have you tried the Unity Asset Complete 360 Tour? If so, any comments? Yes, it is a good question. I tried it. I think it is a good asset. I bought it like 3 years ago. It was like $200. And I tried to use it, but it was by the time when I started experimenting with Unity, and one of the reasons why I decided to become also a Unity developer, besides a 360 photographer, was because I wasn't comfortable with that. I didn't understand what was happening under the hood in that asset from the store. Also, I couldn't control. I remember that that asset. So it has like you open Unity. It has like a small interface, and you can add a map. You can add some sounds, and you can add hotspots. But the thing is, what if I wanted to? And there are a lot of solutions now that provide like a similar solution. They have they have just uh, a certain hotspot that you can use and some and certain actions that you can perform. But what if you wanted to use something else? What if you wanted to create your own custom animation, so your own custom hotspots, your own custom 360 video options? What if you wanted to have like a mix between 3D objects and 360 photos? That is not that is that was not possible in that asset. So that is, I think that is um a good option to start, but um I find it better um using just custom coding it in Unity. The second question from Brian Richards: once you build, do you find the need to update the app often to take account of Oculus updates? Uh, this is a good question. I haven't been updating the apps, like, not because of Oculus. The reason why I update my apps is when let's say there is a new functionality coming. Now, for example, there is this XR interaction toolkit. Now it is way easier to create VR with this. So I would go back to my app and change things. Or, there is this new hand recognition option for the Oculus Quest that was announced last year in the Oculus Connect conference. So I would just go back to my app and see if I can change it and use now the hand tracking. Mm, just if it is something that I want to, um, if I want to update or upgrade my app. Otherwise, it should work. Okay, question 3. Now, OpenXR is now supported by Oculus Quest. Do you think this will make building apps easier, and are there packages that support OpenXR? Okay, I don't know. I didn't know this. I knew, like, there is WebXR and there is OpenVR. I don't know about OpenXR. Um, but regarding regarding WebXR, it is not supported by Unity, as long as I know, and as long as the Unity team told me 2 months ago. And OpenVR, um, this Unity interaction toolkit is being updated so that it supports OpenVR, which is how you can build apps for your HTC Vive. Yeah, sorry about the OpenXR. I will take a look at it, but I don't know about it. Um, uh, Josette Sites says, "Hi, Josette. Nice to see you here." Josette is an XR developer at Accenture. She knows a lot about this. I'm very happy to see her here today. So she says, the previous slide about changing skybox, there was a line of code at the very bottom about dynamic something. What is that? Let me take a look at it. Global skybox use. If you change the skybox in play mode, you have to use the dynamic GI update environment function to update the ambient probe. Wow, that's a good question. I didn't try it. I didn't use it before. I was just changing the skybox, but this is, I'm going to publish the question. But this is referring to the lighting settings, as I can interfere, but I don't know. I would have to test it. Um, Another question, is it difficult to set the canvas and buttons to disappear after you make the selection and then to reappear when you use clicks and button shakes under control around? Um, it is getting easier now, Forrest. That's why the XR interaction toolkit is very useful. It is getting easier and easier every time. So that is outside of the scope of this webinar, but you will have to use some code for that. Make sure to check the Unity XR interaction toolkit to make that. Or if you watch my Unity workshop at Belfast, I was showing some code of how to perform a different action just by, it's like a more complex variant where I am using something that is called Raycaster to perform different actions. But for like without coding, what you can do is you can make the buttons disappear, you can make them reappear. By shaking, you have to look at the input documentation. So I'm going to go back to Unity, and there is an error that was thrown. Um, it is coming from the way that I was exporting Unity, so I'm very used to this. So for today's purposes, and because we ran out of time like 20 minutes ago, I'm going to open another, like the backup project that I had, and I'm going to show you how it looks like. So I'm going to share my screen. I was sharing my screen, and I'm waiting for Unity to open. Now it's open now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my Oculus Quest. I created a piece of code that enables me to mirror my Oculus Quest. So hopefully you will be able to see this in action. So here we go. Well, let me check for this. Give me a couple of seconds, please. I need to. Okay, I'm ready. So hopefully now you can see where's my controller. Where's my second controller? This is a similar app that I was creating. It's basically the same procedure. The one that I created in this webinar didn't work because of the export settings, but since we are running out of time, I just wanted to open this new one. So here, when you hit the play button, the 360 video will start. And if you take your Oculus controller and you use your trigger to pause, the video will stop like we see now. We can go back to play it. And this 360 video is bringing me really good memories from the time that we shot this one. Well, that's another story. So if I click on the 360 photo button, I am going to go back to see my 360 photo. Please note that the quality here is not the best one, and that is because I didn't choose 4K in the maximum resolution. I used 2K just so that it loads quicker. But feel free to change that setting in your app. And you see two lasers here. They come automatically. This is one of the good things from XR Interaction Toolkit. Before, you had to add some models and you had to create a line renderer and different things. So now if I click on play, again, I'm going to be able to play and see my 360 video happening, and I can go back to my photo. So let me go back to you. And this is it, guys. On the canvas, also feel free to use more things, to use drop-down menus, to use like text things, or things like sliders, anything you want. You see there is a slider here. You can play with as many things as you want. So we came to the end of the webinar finally. Thank you all for staying this long in the webinar. I hope it was useful. I hope I was able to reply at least most of the questions. And before we finish the webinar, I just wanted to say a massive thanks to first to you for staying here, and also to the whole board of directors, to Lauren, to Matt, to Gavin, Tanya, Karen. We have been working on this during the last months, and I wanted to, and Jürgen, sorry, Jürgen. I wanted to say especially thank you to Tanya and Karen, because we, during the last, I guess like the last 2 months, we were having everyday meetings and we were working hard on this so that you guys can have this information. Thank you, Tanya and Karen, for your patience and for helping me with the words in English, and for having a lot of fun making this available for you. Now I'm gonna give it back to you, Tanya or Karen, and we're officially done with this, with today's webinar.
Hi, Juan. Thanks for that. I thought that was really, really great. Yeah. So I think I'd like to also thank everyone for being here with us. We really are happy to bring these webinars to you, and we do hope to bring more of them to you. In fact, we know that Juan is working to get more people. In fact, we already have something lined up for stereo, working with stereo images, working with the one-shot cameras, and then later, hopefully, on photogrammetry.
That's
Brian,
great.
yeah, and I just wanted to let you know, Juan, that Brian Richards is asking if you're going to cover more, or I don't know about you in general, but if there's going to be more about publishing Unity apps and within the Oculus store, and all of that. Would you be willing to do more webinars on Unity?
Yes, I love this. For now, I want to take some free time from doing it. But yeah, I can come back with more topics. Although publishing apps to the Oculus Store, I don't think that is. Um, Maybe we can do other topics. That publishing Unity apps to the Oculus Store is something that can take like 3-4 weeks. Um, until Oculus team previews them and yeah curates them. So, but there is a documentation about it. Yeah, in the Unity forum, if you look on how to publish applications for the Unity for the Oculus Store, you can find it. Important is they cannot exceed a certain amount of so they cannot be larger than, I don't remember how much, like 1 gigabyte. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, thanks for the interest, but I think this is a topic that is better done on our own. Thank you, Josette, for your comment. Josette knows way more than me, so I hope I didn't say something that is wrong today.
Okay, well, this is Tanya Barnes. I'm the Director of Online Education at IVRPA. I want to thank Juan for all the hard work that he did to pull this together. Juan's right. We did daily meetings for the past two or 3 months now, trying to hone this down and make it work for everybody. And we do really appreciate your attendance. We appreciate your feedback and interactivity. We just want to thank you for your support. And as you leave the event, you will have an opportunity to submit a survey on today's presentation. As we continue to expand our online offerings, any and all feedback is extremely helpful. Now, just remember, IVRPA is run by a team of volunteers, and we do respond well to constructive criticism. Thank you. Also, should you wish to be considered to present a webinar, we would love to hear from you. So be sure to explore our website to learn more about it and about 360 VR photography and videography. And if you wish to stay informed about our upcoming webinars, become a member at ivrpa.org. I hope to see you all at future webinars. Thank you for your patience, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.